of Ottawa epidemiologist Raywat Deonandan. Raywat, when you look at the numbers out of Manitoba here, what are you seeing as far as trends are concerned?
It's looking fairly flat, to be honest, which is a good thing. So no dramatic increases. And your reproduction number, your R, in the last little while has been around 1, maybe peaking above 1, which is not fantastic, but it's not nearly as dire as some other parts of the country. So in general, I say right now Manitoba is among the better performing provinces, whilst the Atlantic provinces are obviously the best ones. Manitoba is not that far behind.
And I think the perception amongst Manitobans is skewed a little bit. We had that long stretch in the summertime where we had very few to almost 0 cases, and now we've got about 360-ish active cases. So is that what it is? It's all about perspective. You really need to look across the country and maybe look outside your quote-unquote bubble, so to speak?
Yes and no. Yes, perspective is important. At the same time, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be concerned. 300 or so cases for a population your size is fairly a lot. I live in Ottawa. It's the same. The population here is about the same as the province of Manitoba, and we have fewer active cases. So you could do better, right? But it's not apocalyptic. I think you're definitely in the zone where you can still very much control this if things go the right way. So it's early days still, and it's not the time to panic. It's never the time to panic, but it's not as bad as it could be and as bad as other parts of the country.
Our top doctor is clearly concerned, but at the same time, the province isn't exactly rolling out the COVID tracing app either. So would that allay concerns? Or does it make a difference if that app is in place?
I don't understand why they're not laying out the COVID app. It's an easy tool. It exists already. It doesn't hurt anyone to get it. It's free, and it might help a little bit. It's particularly useful in urban areas, so in Winnipeg and other kinds of urban centers, it might be serviceable. What we're finding in other urban centers across Canada is a large number of cases that can't be traced because, in large part, the cases don't know their movement history. And that's where the app could be useful. So I'm surprised that it's not being used yet in Manitoba.
This is what Brent Rusin had to say earlier today about the app.
Remember, it's not going to replace, public health's ability to contact trace. That's the most important aspect of the contact tracing. This would be adding some insight to that.
But you need a lot of people to take up the app. So, Raywat, when you look at the experience, especially Ontario, are people using it?
No, not as much as they could or should. We're fond of saying that ideally 60% of the population should be using it to really make a huge difference. But really, if anyone uses it, it's useful. Already in Ottawa, we've had a couple of cases, at least one, maybe more, of people being identified as positive as a result of the app, and they would not have otherwise have known. So it can be useful. So what it does, it replaces the need to remember where you've been. And I know that sounds like big brotherly surveillance to a lot of people, but it really isn't. The phone doesn't communicate with anybody else unless you let it. So, like I said, it doesn't replace the need for public health at all. It's simply a tool that contact tracers can use to help the process along.
With Raywat Deonandan, University of Ottawa epidemiologist Richard and Julie with you on 680 CJOB. There are several of the cases here in Winnipeg that are related to restaurants, bars, and gyms as sites of possible exposures over the last week. It seems to me a very simple way of doing this would be you go into those facilities, you provide your name and number, and it makes contact tracing a whole lot easier. It's not mandatory here. It's requested at a lot of places, but others not. It seems to me, Raywat, a simple solution would be if you're buying a good or a service or you're hanging out somewhere, give them your phone number.
100%. Nothing prevents you from giving a false phone number, which is a problem, and many people will, but it doesn't have to be a perfect solution. You can probably find a few contacts that way. An even better solution, frankly, is to close bars and gyms while we get this under control, because it's only going to get a little bit worse. And we're finding that in many parts of the world right now, restaurants in particular are proving to be sources of super spreading events. So until we get a better understanding of how that's working, maybe it's not the time to be playing with these opportunities for super spreading events.
And that's a big statement as we wait to speak to the executive director of the Manitoba Restaurant and Food Services Association. So what would you recommend to him and to his membership then to prevent having to close down restaurants?
I think as the cold weather approaches, outdoor dining becomes less and less available. And the more we can prolong patio season, the better. I think indoor dining probably should be discouraged to a very large extent. So deploy your outdoor heaters and so forth. What we're finding is aerosol transmission might be a bigger deal than we originally thought, which means the mask and the distancing aren't doing as much of a job at curtailing transmission as we'd hoped because the aerosol is so potent. So with indoor seating, especially in places with non-moving air, with bad air purifiers, it could be an issue. If you have to remain open, invest in air purifiers, better HVAC systems, filters, that sort of thing.
Raywat, appreciate the time.
Thank you very much.
Raywat Deonandan from the University of Ottawa, where he is an epidemiologist.